Director. Well, when I received the invitation, I should say, and looking at the profile of speakers and participants, I had a bit of FOMO. But listening to the parts of the previous session that I've listened to, I certainly feel like I'd rather be here than driving back to Parliament to vote. But then when it comes to Parliament and voting, you don't have much of a choice. It is a decision of the Chief Whip. Program Director, former President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Thabo Mbeki, the former Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Tony Abbott, former Prime Minister of Mali, Mr. Moussa Mara, Speaker of the National Assembly, South Africa, Mr. Didiza, former Minister of Commerce and Industry in India, Mr. Anand Sharma, Chairman of the Observer Research Foundation in India, Mr. Sanjay Joshi, Chief Executive Officer of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Mr. Max Bokwana, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As representative of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in South Africa, and indeed the government of South Africa, it is an honor to be addressing you today at this year's second Cape Town Conversations. As you are aware, Africa is one of the world's fastest growing regions, rich in natural resources, with 60% of the globe's unused arable land, a youthful population, and a rising middle class. Despite these advantages, the continent contributes only 3% to global trade, reflecting its reliance on raw commodity exports and value-added imports. This dependency, compounded by external shocks like fluctuating commodity prices, COVID-19, and the Russia-Ukraine conflict, underscores Africa's vulnerability and the urgent need for economic resilience. Therefore, to unlock its potential, Africa should address structural challenges such as inadequate infrastructure, fragmented markets, and limited industrial diversification. Fortunately, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area offers a transformative opportunity by integrating markets, boosting intra-Africa trade, and promoting industrial development. As the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, we are clear in championing South Africa's role towards a development integration approach under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which aims to combine market integration with infrastructure and industrial growth in laying the foundation for realizing Africa's Agenda 2063 goals. Ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly, developing countries rich in critical minerals have a unique opportunity to benefit from two significant trends that can drive their sustainable development, namely the energy transition and the digital economy. According to the International Energy Agency, global demand for minerals such as lithium for electric vehicles or selenium for solar cells is expected to triple by 2030 and quadruple by 2040. As such, local and regional value chain addition can promote a more equitable distribution of benefits and create opportunities for diversification, broader energy access, and sustainable growth. To leverage their natural endowment and avoid pitfalls of past commodity dependence, developing countries rich in critical energy transition minerals should urgently move up global value chains, industrialize, and leverage the critical minerals. In this regard, the key policy question for South Africa, Africa, and the broader global South is whether colonial trade relations of extraction in developing countries and value addition in developed countries will contribute to economic growth and job creation for the development of the people under whose soil these minerals reside. From an economic perspective, the answer is unambiguous. Although some mining activities can be labor-intensive, the actual number of people employed is often a small share of total employment. For example, South Africa's iron ore mining accounts for approximately 21,000 jobs. By comparison, the steel manufacturing and downstream value-added sectors account for about 362,000 jobs at present. In addition, the tax revenue and economic contribution from the steel value chain as a whole is substantially larger than the contribution of iron ore mining. From an environmental and carbon footprint perspective, it is hard to see the justification for shipping tons of unprocessed minerals rather than shipping the much smaller quantity of processed and purified minerals. Of course, the beneficiation as an economic strategy faces potential challenges. An obvious one is policy resistance from countries without mineral resources, often framed as competitiveness concerns, claiming beneficiation lacks the competitive advantage of mining. However, this argument overlooks how state-driven investments like South Africa's rail and port infrastructure for iron ore exports create competitive advantages, demonstrating the role of policy in shaping economic outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, other challenges include foreign investors prioritizing mineral exports to their home country, processing facilities, and the claim that developing countries lack the necessary technology, skills, and market access for beneficiation. To counter these, African governments can forge cross-border partnerships that ensure shared benefits and invest in developing local capabilities. A proactive industrial policy is crucial, fostering technology, skills, and infrastructure development alongside mining operations to avoid coordination failures and unlock beneficiation's full potential. It is vital for the global community and multilateral institutions such as the WTO to create enabling conditions through fairer trade rules, enhanced support for technology transfer, and increased investment in sustainable and resilient infrastructure across the developing world. Given this context, the Africa Group in the WTO has submitted proposals to recalibrate trade rules to provide policy space for industrial development of developing countries. These proposals are critical to promote digital and green industrialization and promote technology transfer and must be supported. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the G20 was established to foster innovation in global governance and address complex global challenges. South Africa assumes the G20 presidency at a time of escalating geopolitical tensions, climate crisis, fragmented supply chains, and widening inequality. These dynamics have exacerbated feelings of exclusion and discontent, leading many countries to adopt trade restrictive and industrial policies, often to the detriment of developing countries. African countries are particularly affected due to their reliance on commodities, heightened climate risks, food insecurity, and mounting debt. Tackling these challenges demands enhanced international cooperation, and a focus on addressing disparities caused by the uneven effects of trade and globalization. Reforming the global governance framework is critical as the current multilateral system predominantly serves developed countries. Meaningful participation of developing nations in global trade and economic development is essential for fostering cooperation and sustainable progress. Program Director, as a forum for the world's largest economies, the G20 should ideally address pressing environmental, social, and economic challenges. Policies promoting sustainable development, green industrialization, and local value addition are key, particularly in the transition to cleaner energy sources. Investments in developing countries must move beyond resource extraction to beneficiation and value creation at source. Under the theme, Fostering Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability, South Africa's G20 presidency from December 2024 to November 2025 will focus on 4 priorities within the Trade and Investment Working Group. 1, promoting inclusive trade and growth through a G20 Africa cooperation agenda. 2, advancing a responsive trade and investment agenda for global commons. 3, developing a G20 framework on green industrialization and value addition. And 4, pursuing WTO reform and a focus on development. Ladies and gentlemen, as the DTIC family, once again we thank the Thabo Mbeki Foundation for inviting us to participate at the second Cape Town Conversations. As South Africa begins preparations to host the G20 presidency, it is gratifying that we will seek to guide the G20 towards a more inclusive and sustainable global development agenda that supports balanced growth, shared prosperity, and the industrialization and reindustrialization of Africa. This will be premised on our objective of investing into beneficiation of our critical minerals with a regional approach in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for joining us this afternoon. And if